meeting to order, Silver Falls School District. Now have attendance, all are here, and we'll have flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda review, entertain a motion.
Move to accept the agenda as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the agenda as presented. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Okay. Consent agenda. Look for a motion on that.
Move for approval.
Second.
Been moved and second to move for approval of the consent agenda. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Mr. Lever, come on up with Mr. Lever and his representatives from a state championship football team.
I'm gonna let each one of these guys share a memory, and then I can go at the end. So, two at a time. So,
We don't bite.
Probably my favorite memory was when we went to Coeur d'Alene, our first game, and we went over to Idaho, and we had a bunch of fun there. We went to Silverwood after we played. Before we left on Thursday, it was a really long bus ride, and then on Saturday we went to a Wazoo game and watched them play. So yeah.
And then I want to talk about the Lebanon game. It was our homecoming game, and we ended up losing, which is something that we shouldn't have lost. We had quite a bit of starters out, but that doesn't really mean a lot. But the thing about losing is that it kind of set an example for all of us as to it kind of just set the picture for the rest of the season. It's not easy losing. Nobody liked losing, and it just kind of united us together. Afterwards, the next morning, we had like a team meeting together. We spoke about the game, and it brought us all together, and it ended up, I think, if we didn't, that game didn't happen, we wouldn't have won the state championship, and we wouldn't have had the season that we had.
Gentlemen, before you leave, could you each give your name, please?
I'm Logan Udo.
I'm Kane Mack.
Thank you.
Logan, were you player of the game at the state championship?
Oh, yes, I was.
Oh, you're excited about that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I was excited for you.
introduce yourself first. Sorry.
Yeah, that's good.
Hi, I'm James Collier.
I'm Ryan Kinsey.
I'm here to talk about the Wilsonville game. So last year we lost in the semifinals to Wilsonville, and that brought great emotion. I mean, a lot of emotion came out, and it was honestly really sad. And I think that motivated us for our drive in the playoffs this year, for sure. And it was great joy to beat them this year.
I second that.
Yeah, and I'm just going to talk about our state championship. And I started freshman year, never played football before, didn't know anything about it. And I really just fell in love with the atmosphere in the game. And yeah, these last 2 years, losing in the semis and just not quite getting there and ending our season crying, like in tears. And then to be able to end this year crying in tears of joy was really just, it was an amazing feeling.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for the invite this evening. Just want to express to you all in the community how proud we are of our team, and how, you know, it takes more than just one person or one player. It takes a lot of people to make this possible. And, you know, you think 3 years ago where this district was and the adversity we've had to fight through to where we are now and the track that we're on. I'm really proud of that as well. But it's pretty easy to work with such outstanding kids. I said it in our assembly, but you know, one of the top stats about this team is that they're 4th in 5A in terms of GPA. And it just shows you how dedicated they are off the field as well as on the field. You know, there hasn't been a ton of time to celebrate because most of the guys behind me have jumped into their second and going to jump into their third sport. So I'm proud of our kids for attacking the next challenge. And I think that's an important life lesson is we did something awesome that we're going to remember forever, but there always has to be the next chase that we have to go attack. And so I'm proud of our kids for doing that. So thank you guys, and I don't know if there's any questions or things you guys want me to talk about, but that's really all I had planned.
I just thought of something that I didn't hear one negative story all year, men. Not one party I didn't hear about. I hear great things about you guys off the field, not just in the classroom, but just good character. Means the world. Dan, I couldn't be happier that you're here, buddy. A lot of people don't know that we were brothers at Linfield, and when you came here, I was completely surprised, but you represent this town incredibly well. Thank you, but you guys, Logan, after what you had to go through last year and miss that last game and then be able to have the year you did, extremely proud of all you guys. So I couldn't be prouder to be a Fox. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a challenge. It was a lot of heart and sacrifice and logistics and trying to find a way, and we always seem to find one. So, except one time, but you know, I'm with Logan. I think that helped us get to the end. So,
Well, Dan, I just want to congratulate you, congratulate all your coaches that work with you, the fine young men, and you've all represented this community. Whether you won or lost, you've represented well, as Director Ort pointed out. You know, no side stories and that sort of thing. That's not always easy in this day and age. But also the appreciation for everybody that helped accomplish this, from your guys, your parents getting you to practices back before you could drive, all the youth coaches and came before and all that, and all the hard work that you guys and all your teammates have put in. It takes all of that, and a little sprinkling of luck, and you walk away, but you guys did everything right to cut down on luck being a part of it. And so congratulations, a great achievement, and you represented the school and the community well. So, thank you.
thank you. One quick story about this group is we have this hard drill on defense. It's called pursuit drill, and it's not a fun drill, but basically you're working on your pursuit angles and running as fast as you can. It's always a mad dash after school to get everything ready for practice. And the kids started the warm-up, and they went right into pursuit drill on their own as the coaches are getting everything ready to go. And they were holding themselves to a really high standard. And I said to myself, man, that is a player-led team. I think we've got a real chance. So proud of them for that. Anyway, I need to write some of this stuff down because I'm going to forget it in a year. But anyway, thank you guys so much, and thank you for all your support, and go Foxes.
Congratulations. Well done.
Our student representatives here this evening.
Good evening. My name is JJ Brown. I'm a senior and one of the ASB school board representatives. Tonight, I will be speaking on behalf of Adeline Kenzie, the other school board representative, as she was not able to make it tonight. Our tree of giving events are slowly wrapping up with only a few fundraisers left for our high school students. All of our community events has had great success, and we were so pleased with the participation from the community. Clubs are having a busy December with our speech and debate traveling to Clackamas to compete on Saturday, and our FFA is having their annual Christmas tree sales at Wilco right now. Our choir performed at the Grotto last Thursday and have their holiday spirit concert on December 17th, starting at 7 p.m. in the auditorium here. Choraleros are also busy as they sing at the Silverton and Mount Angel tree lightings this past weekend. Choir and band also have their holiday fundraiser concert on December 10th at 7 p.m. We look forward to seeing what they are up to for the rest of the month. Now on to sports. Fall sports officially wrapped up on November 28th as our football Foxes defeated the Summit Storm in the 5A state championship game. Way to go, football. Winter sports have kicked off with girls basketball winning their first game against Cascade last Thursday, and they are traveling to McMinnville this week as they are taking on Springfield at home on Thursday. Boys basketball kicks off their season on Saturday against Redmond at 6 p.m. here. Boys and girls swimming traveled to Malala on Friday for their first meet. Girls wrestling competed at the Battle for the Capital at McKay last Friday, while boys wrestling competed at Rick Herron Holiday Classic on Saturday, also at McKay High School. We cannot wait to see what else our winter sports will accomplish this upcoming week and the rest of the winter. We are so proud of the Foxes and all the hard work they have put in throughout the school year. Thank you.
Thank you. Patrick, I believe you're up for school report, Victor Point and Evergreen.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. Appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be able to speak about two awesome schools here in Silver Falls. And I will preface with saying I'm, super excited. Definitely was a lot of learning for me too, coming from 4 years at the high school. Everything from pushing mops around corners, helping kids get out of cars, riding bus routes after school. But it's been so enjoyable just being, there with an amazing staff, amazing communities, and really amazing students. So just have a few things I just wanted to share, and then a couple highlight points. You will see each of you do have a little sort of a holiday thank you card from some of our classes at Victor Point. I do apologize if some of you get the 8th graders. I think they a little more of that humbug spirit and don't want to sign anything above, just print their name. But definitely out there, and we do appreciate all that you do. And so I just wanted to give you a little something from Victor Point. So just a few things. Always just start off with some of the number pieces. Looking at current enrollment for both schools, down 1 or 2 in each. Obviously, at the same time, have a couple kids that are looking to join. One student looking to join Victor Point right after break. So still kind of staying about the same, looking with that. Do also want to highlight the 2 highest attendance rates. Thank you very much. Right now in the district, I have absolutely nothing to do with that, but I at least can put it up here. But speaks to our connections that our teachers and staff have, and the importance that our parents and families have on making sure that our kids are present so we can do the important work of learning. I wanted to give just the last year's, OSAS data, just be able to show, these we know are schools that do perform, really well, and we have things we want to celebrate. So looking at our end of year, we see this as Evergreen, for example, looking at the math and ELA. Blue is obviously our above, green would be meets, our yellow is nearly, and red would be below. And then be able to look at Victor Point as well. So again, sharing that, and all this will be shared with you, but just we have really amazing students and our staff that do a lot of work with this. But part of why I wanted to share that was to say it doesn't just come from nowhere. And so this is where we start. So this is actually our beginning of the year, like Dibbles data. So looking at where our grades are at Victor Point, anything that's in red, we're looking at is that kind of our well below, and we need to do some work. We always say kindergarten is that caveat of some of them just coming in for the first time having instruction. We do more progress monitoring, and we usually see a lot of really great growth when we come back and share with you later where all those students end up. But seeing that we don't start all, in the green. We do have some great kids that are coming to us, but there's a lot of work that our teachers and staff do to get those OSAS results at the end of the year. And then Evergreen as well, we see a lot of work that we're going to focus on. And our teachers, we've already met and completed, as I'll talk later, on our core review, where we dive into this data and actually pick apart each of the components of those tests to really highlight what is the area we want to focus on for each grade for the whole classroom. So the teacher can really be much more if you'll pinpoint and precision in what they're going to focus on for the whole school or for the whole class. And then on math, this is our iReady beginning year diagnostic. So also able to see where we're looking at yellow, they would consider one grade level below. Again, this is the start of the year. So where are we going to see these students as they are exposed to the curriculum and the content and go through? So at Victor Point, have some great students, but we also know we're going to have a lot of work because we're going to really want to see as much green and as many students meeting benchmarks by the end of the year. Evergreen as well. Again, kindergarten, we got work. We're going to work on them because they're brand new. They're excited. We're there. They're little sponges all ready to soak up all that great knowledge. So all that means we want to make sure that we have a focus on something. And so these are two building goals that we have sort of across for both buildings, and also what I myself am focusing my goals on. So when meeting with Kim and talking through what we're doing for this. So you'll see one's focus with our middle schoolers on math. One, because we know when we can make sure that our students are at grade level as 8th graders, especially coming into the high school, having a much better chance to be algebra ready, focused on that, and be able to, again, path towards graduation, towards higher level mathematics. We know focusing on that for 8th graders and for middle school is a really important piece. So that's one of the goals that we're focused on, is our 90% of our students that are at that 1, 2, or we're going to move up to that level 3, so meeting or higher for middle school math. And then the other is with obviously our new K-5 literacy curriculum, really focusing on where our students will be in that reading fluency, foundational literacy skills as measured through DIBELS. So we'll be able to see how is this new curriculum specifically looking at the growth of our students and their abilities as we'll measure. So there are a number of things that we're kind of doing, and we kind of listed through here. This is sort of the how. What are we doing? What are we focusing on? So we obviously have our continued training and implementation district-wide, but obviously working within our buildings of the new K-5 phonics curriculum. We do the core reviews working with the Oregon Literacy Project, as well to try to really dig into where our students are as a whole. We later will have what we call our 20% meetings, where now we start looking at where the students that are still not quite meeting, what can we do to provide resources and supports. We continue to have the ongoing collaboration with our district literacy team, where we meet as a whole district team to calibrate, be on the same page, talk through what this is going to look like, how do we support our teachers in meeting these needs. We'll do those regular progress monitoring. We'll have our next one, our interim assessments, that will come up sort of in the beginning of January through beginning of February, where we'll be able to again see, hey, how did those first few months go? How have we moved the needle? Where's the growth that we see in our students? We've been working and refining and implementing sort of updated care team process, so we can make sure we're meeting, both pulling data as well as getting information from teachers to meet academic and behavioral needs. Working with our teachers, their professional goals aligned to student achievement, and specifically looking at some of those data points that I shared already of how do we, what are we looking at, what are we assessing, and not just our students, but how we are doing as instructors in the classroom and working with our students. And we've talked as a leadership team of really wanting to, one of the great things that I've so appreciated with both of the schools, Evergreen and Victor Point, is the involvement of our parents and our community. So really saying, how could we even harness that and be more specific? Because we know we send home a reading log that says, hey, read 20 minutes a night. Like 100% of those kids fill that one up, and we mark off my son's sitting there coloring in his leaves that he read books that night. But could we be intentional about, we're going to focus on specific skills and give some resources and supports to parents so we actually can be targeted in what's happening at home as well as what we're doing in the classroom. So that takes some work with our teachers and communicating and creating resources and support so it's accessible for parents and for families. So that's one of the things that we really want to work on looking at moving forward. Of course, we want to highlight the fun as well, so kind of put a little collage of some of the pictures that you'll see. Some great opportunities we've had at Evergreen. We actually had it happen at both schools. I just have the pictures for Evergreen. A great partnership with ODFW, Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, where they'll bring in salmon eggs and they put them in the classrooms and we let them go through the whole thing and the kids see them hatch and they name them. I'm pretty sure about 90% of the ones at Evergreen were named Bob. I said that one's Bob, that one's Bob something, that one's, so there's all variations of Bob. And we then, as you can see on the bridge, released all the Bobs into Drift Creek, because it was awesome. One of our students, their uncle actually works for ODFW as a biologist, and so was able to come in and talk with the students, what went through. We drove them up to Drift Creek and were able to release them out, and theoretically I learned that of the 100 or so we put out there, maybe we might see 3. That's a good return if we see 3 fish come back. So we'll see. We'll see if any of the Bobs come back at that point. Also, which was really great, the Oregon Portland Opera has like a traveling opera piece that came through and did a whole assembly and was able to talk with the students about what that looks like and what does it mean to be an opera singer. And then they actually got to see a mini operetta that was done for all the students there at Evergreen, which was, really they're far more talented than I am to be able to do that. So just some of the, the fun pieces that we have. And then at Victor Point, we continue to have our kids are out there on outdoor school. There's lots of pictures of fishing. There's only one I have of anyone that actually caught a fish, so those ones are probably pretty safe. Always really appreciated our Student of the Month, and there we actually have all of our VIKE Award winners, so our teachers get to pick 2 Students of the Month, and we have little, what we call very important kids. You got caught doing something awesome, and then we put those into a hat, and you get to pull it out and get yourself a pizza party. And sometimes Domino's is the best motivator sometimes. And then our teachers there working really hard with our new curriculum and supporting our students, as well as then some of our middle school students sharing their writing and the pieces that they've done. So a lot of really exciting things that are going on, and we're just really thankful for the opportunity to talk with you today and want to be able to answer any questions or things that you may have.
I guess the only question I have, obviously a bunch of great stuff on the implementation of the new phonics program. How's that going? Is it a heavy lift for the teachers? Just kind of curious what that does look like.
I think it's anytime you start something new, there's always going to be that okay, how do we make this fit, and let's make sure. And so we've really been trying to channel the hey, we're going to do this. We're going to do it with fidelity. We know that there's going to be road bumps and hiccups as we figure this all out. And it's been great because they've been getting multiple days of support and training. Granted, some of that is kind of as we're going at the same time. So what we're really seeing is continued of implementation and support as we see how we improve in that ability to use it. And so I think actually looking at the data and seeing how our work on that has helped to move the needle will help to add more to that. And so I think they're more getting familiar with it. Once you do things repetitive over time, just like for our students, we know it lowers that cognitive lift to be able to, I know the process. It's the same for our teachers. The more and more they're using that, it's lowering that cognitive lift for them as well as the instructor.
Thank you.
First of all, I just want to say thank you. Those were really impressive scores. Just seeing the growth over the different grade bands was pretty exciting. Your Parent Academy, I also think that's really exciting. I just wanted to make certain that you're doing that for math as well as ELA. Are you planning?
Yes, we've been talking about that. The middle school team really wants to focus that on the math piece because we know, especially we've identified where and we really want to be intentional actually at 5th grade with some of the math pieces. So in our leadership team looking at what can we do to help our 5th graders to be 6th grade math ready, knowing that can actually help us so we can then make sure we're algebra ready. So we want to focus on the things that we can do there and trying to, we all know we would love to have more resources, more people support, but every school, all of us are in that same boat. And I know Kim would love to give us everything, but that's her job, is to make sure that we're keeping the ship straight. So we've had long discussions of how can we think more creatively outside of the box of we can't keep one, what we say, the definition of insanity is let's do the same thing and hope for a different result. So we need to try something different. Can we look at Saturday math, camps? Can we look at how we send home different work and pieces to be more strategic in how we do that? So math would absolutely be
and helping the parents understand how to support them.
Yep.
That would be wonderful.
Yeah, because the math is even new for me when I sit there and look at it. Making sure that we're there to support and how we do all that.
And sorry, one more question. For those kids who are really achieving, particularly at that 8th grade level, are there any plans or enrichments for them to kind of jump into some pre-algebra or algebra work? Or is that?
Yeah, so I think we often try to talk about we don't necessarily want to go too wide with things, but can we increase the depth in which we take students in that grade level? Because we do know sometimes we miss out on other components, but we definitely want to meet the child where they're at. So is it that can we take the same content and maybe apply it at a greater level, like take some of those same standards and put to real world applications, some bigger questions? Maybe we might start to introduce some of those higher level topics. We want to balance that because we also know, and I just know coming from the high school, sometimes those decisions have ripple effects as we get down later to their high school years. So we just want to be really intentional, so really meeting every child where they are. But
Particularly
yes, we
math,
want to
yeah.
make sure we meet the
So
needs.
we'll make
of
sure our
our-
tag kids are getting thought to, so, yeah. Thank you, this is
Absolutely.
exciting stuff.
Absolutely, thank you.
I really appreciated what you're doing to engage parents as well, to help the child to learn things and support what's going on in school. On your academic goals, are those stretch goals, or are they something you expect to achieve?
I always like to look at things as an attainable stretch. Does that make sense? Like
Yeah.
I want it to be a stretch, but I also don't want to, as I tell my teacher, I don't want to beat ourselves over the head if we don't quite get there. I'd rather do the postmortem to look at what was the reason why maybe we didn't quite get there, and the journey is be more important than the end result.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, I want to make sure whatever goal we're setting is attainable, but also is something that we know is going to, not just for us, but actually support this is important for the students. If we can get 90% of those kids that are below or way below, that really helps us up as a whole ecosystem of learners.
Mhm. Good, thank you.
And, psychologically, it's always goals have that impact, you set it at 100%, well, if you get halfway, you're 50, but if you set it at 50 and you only get halfway, you're only 25. So.
Exactly.
One thing I thought might be helpful for some people who are more familiar with each of the schools than others, if you could just real quickly line out the two schools, how the grades are divided by
absolutely.
classroom.
Yeah.
Just a visual.
Yeah, so probably the best way, if I can go back. So obviously with Evergreen, we're looking at 3 teachers. So we have three grade blends. So we have a K1-2 classroom, a 3-4-5 classroom, and then a 6-7-8 classroom. So definitely we talk around our teachers there are interdisciplinary and multi-content experts because they are on the fly between multiple contents, multiple grade levels, standards to go. So they are experts in how they're, walking, for Mr. Murphy's classroom, and we're moving from 8th graders are working on math while the 7th graders are doing an independent study on an activity, and then we're doing a rotation back in. And I mean, there's a lot of movement that's happening. Or Mrs. Buckley, who's got kindergartners who are still working on some letter recognition and all those pieces, to 2nd graders who are early emerging readers that she's sitting there in her classroom, and how do we meet the needs. So they have a lot of skill in how they go about that. Victor Point, we're looking at, we only have one blend. It's our 3rd grade, so it's a 2-3 blended classroom and a 3-4 blended classroom, and then at straight grades, one teacher for each grade, K through 8 there. So
Is enrollment at Evergreen, is it spread pretty even between each grades?
yeah, give or take like 3 or so, 2 to 3, but for the most part, it's roughly, but it's not. There's not a massive 10 swing between one grade to another.
Last one, Patrick, just for me. Attendance. How do those numbers get calculated? Like regular attenders versus, how does that, what does that percentage mean? 95% of what?
Yeah, so we pull that off of our SIS system. So Heidi Eberly helped me to pull that. So it's looking at the percentage of our students that are attending, that are there in attendance on a regular basis. So we're hitting
So that's like the regular attendance number is what you're saying?
I believe that's the number that came off there. I can triple check to make sure
Okay.
that's what I got from Heidi off of the report, because mine was finicky and it was double counting one grade in a blend twice, so the number wasn't accurate. So I'd have Heidi pull it for me.
No worries. Thanks, man.
Thank you, Patrick.
All right, thank you all.
Patrick, can I borrow the clicker from you? Thank you.
And now we have the Silver Falls Education Association. Come on up.
All right, first and foremost, we wanted to give a huge congratulations to the Foxes, the football team, for winning. I know I was yelling and screaming at my TV like it was Sunday Night Football. I even got my dad to watch. He was so excited. We've got 9 days until winter break, and it sure feels like we've got 9 days till winter break. Holiday programs and rehearsals are in full swing. That is why Katie's not here. She's in the auditorium right now with her kids for their program. And all of the other festive related activities that are going to be crammed into the next 9 days as well. We are very thankful though for the quick response and actions that kept students and staff safe at Robert Frost this past week. That's not a text I like to see. Hey, I got canceled. Our school is out because we have no trusses in our roofs. Oh, great. Okay. But we are also very glad and thankful for the staff that were really flexible today and moving classrooms a couple of times and being flexible with the changes on the fly for today too. It only shines a bigger light though on the importance of a bond that we need passed for our schools to keep things maintained and upkept so that that doesn't happen and isn't becoming a normal thing as our buildings age more and more. The safety and well-being of our staff and students are dependent on these buildings, and we need the ability to keep and maintain them for their safe learning environments. And then our first early release is on Tuesday. So Thursday, not Tuesday.
I was like, no.
It even says Thursday. No panic, it's Thursday. And we are really grateful for that time so that each building can address the needs that they have at their individual site to help their individual students and kind of make those adjustments and meet with teams and go over data and all of the things that are going to be happening across all the schools. One unforeseen issue that we saw was that the last two our early releases we had was that we had 25% more staff than we did. So creating those schedules of who's going where and when became quite the puzzle in a lot of our buildings on how to get prep time and lunch times covered. It's been a very delicate dance. So making sure that everybody has their minimum lunch and prep times that are outlined in our contract and that everybody is, kids are covered where they're supposed to be. So that has been a unexpected consequence that we did not realize until it was like, oh, okay, we gotta restart. So, otherwise, we are surviving the next 9 days. That's all I have.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have the public comment portion of our meeting. If you'd like to speak, come up. Do we have anyone first? Do we have anyone online? Raise hand feature online. Okay. Okay, and staff reports. And Kim, you're
Okay, thanks, Daniel. All right,
You're
here
up.
we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we're looking at December already. Time flies when you're having fun. We're going to talk about, well, I have some of my own photos from the state championship because I'm a big football fan, so I thought that was really exciting. We're going to talk about, I'm going to go over the Robert Frost repairs with you guys, and then I'm going to talk about the long-range facilities. I'm going to give you an update on that. So I want you to look really closely at this picture. What do you see?
Orange.
Orange. A lot of orange. So when I walked through here, I figured that 80% of the crowd at Hillsborough Stadium was Silverton folks. And so I just thought this was such a great picture because it just shows how much community support our athletes and students have. And the 12th man theory is that, or woman, that really makes a big difference in that type of environment when you have that huge community support and all those people cheering for you and making all that noise and just being really excited when you win. And so I just wanted to show you that photo because I thought it was really cool and it was a real testament to our community spirit and how we support one another. These are just a couple pictures from the assembly we had. So some of the athletes spoke, and then and Levi Scherter gives a pretty good speech, I'm not gonna lie. And then KJ was presented the trophy from Dan Lever, and that was really an exciting moment. So I just thought that was a really cute photo, so I'm gonna share it with you guys. Okay, Robert Frost. So I want to talk about this in a public session so that folks get a better understanding of what we're looking at with some of our long-term deferred maintenance. So on the 3rd of December, we got a call, I did, from Jeff, and he's like, hey, Kim, we got a problem over at Robert Frost. Can you pop over here? And a couple of the vents had fallen down in the kitchen a little bit. It wasn't a huge amount, but it was kind of noticeable that they were kind of popped down a little bit. And so when Daniel and Jeff and I and Elise was there, a bunch of us were there, Tony was there, when we started looking at the truss system above the kitchen, we noticed that there were a couple of broken trusses. So Daniel had heard one kind of pop, make a noise, and he had investigated and found one. And then we ended up finding 5 total above that area. So there were 3 kind of above the kitchen, and then a couple more above the functional skills classroom. And so we immediately called the engineer, and ZCS Engineering was on site within probably an hour. It was
Wow, that's amazing.
It was, yes. And they're really good partners for us. They helped design the seismic refit or retrofit at Silvercrest, and so they have been a really good partner to us. And Kevin Hassick has been a good thought partner for me a couple of different times. I've called him about the middle school and some of that reconfiguration and what would be the best way to do that. And so he's just they're great partners. And so they zipped right over there and they looked at it. And I've asked him, I had a couple parents say, hey, why did that do that? And Jeff asked Kevin today, and Kevin's like, it's a variety of factors. The building is old, so the building was built in the 60s. The construction, he says, is not the highest quality construction in the world on that end. The other end is fine. So these were built at a little bit different time. And so the classroom end he found was really structurally good, no issues, but that other end needs some repairs, really honestly. And so he looked at every truss in the building, every single truss. And there were 5 total that were broken. And so he created a plan to shore those up, and Brokamp and Jaeger, which is the contractor that did the work at Silvercrest, Jeff had them on site the same day, and they were working. And so the first thing they did was repair the first 2 that Daniel noticed, and then they went to work after the engineer came back through and said where the other issues were. And so the building has been cleared by the engineer. It's completely safe to be in, but it does bring up the question about what do we do with these aging facilities that need major repair work or upgrades or maintenance. And this, there's no real cause for this. Like, it wasn't caused by a leaky roof. It wasn't caused by, storm damage or whatever. He said it pretty much is just because of its age and its quality of construction is his thought on that. So if anyone asks you that is what he shared with me. So the building is cleared for students, but there's bracing inside. So I'm going to show you a couple pictures so you kind of get an idea. So this is one of the trusses that was actually broken inside the building.
So I got a quick question.
Sure, Wally. Yep.
Were any of these items on any of the maintenance lists, were they identified as a problem earlier, as a weak point?
No, these are new. I mean, I think these are relatively new because Daniel has heard a couple. Dan is the custodian in that building. He's heard 2 of them break recently.
So I guess my question was, it wasn't on any radar that,
No.
hey, we've got a problem here.
No, this was not on our radar at all. Now, we knew the roof is getting old at Robert Frost. So the roof was put on in 97, I believe. And so it's nearly 30 years old, so that's 29. So the roof needs to be replaced at some point. But we had no idea that this was an issue. And so it's going to have structural improvement inside the attic area on that side of the building. And it probably should have a new roof while you're doing it.
I guess I'll piggyback on this. So I went through the BLRB whole report because I have a personal copy because I was like, how does this happen? you know, I see there's a crack on the other piece of wood there. There was 5 others that don't look like this. And I'm like, we paid a lot of money for these site assessments. I have no evidence that they ever went in there and looked.
Mm-hmm.
And same, I'm going through the state one right now. They just gave it. There's nothing. And they were just there.
Yeah, I'm going to talk more about that when I go over the long-range facilities plan. That is an issue, like, you know, when we were looking at the depth and the specificity and the detail in the state report. Like, it's a good kind of general picture, but it does not give you detailed things that need work.
So,
like, and they didn't go on the roofs.
So my concern is, like, we spent a lot of money on that last assessment, and you look at a home inspection, and depending how good, they take pictures of everything, every floor joist that they think is rotting. Like, when they do these site assessments, and we got one for every building, it makes me concerned now about the rest of the buildings and how good that assessment was on those buildings.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it makes me very uneasy. I'm absolutely certain that Robert Frost, after this, is probably going to be one of our safest buildings, with the amount of attention being paid to it. But I'm like, you know, I think rightly concerned, you know, based on looking at the report, and there's no mention of any truss being looked at, period.
Yeah.
Just exterior or interior roof.
You mentioned the bond, and if a bond would have passed, we would have still had this issue, because it wasn't on anybody's radar.
Yeah, it wasn't. The roof would have been replaced in the bond if it had passed. So the roof was on there, I believe, but no, there's no mention of this. I can't find this anywhere. Like, I dug around too, like a squirrel, like you did. Like, where is this? Is this anywhere? I couldn't find it anywhere either, and I think it's a relatively newish problem. Like, I don't think it's been this way for a long time. So, that means...
Yeah.
What?
Cause? Do they, I mean, how does this happen?
Because he said it's just poor quality construction and age. He really doesn't have another, although we had an earthquake a couple weeks ago, he doesn't, I mean, I didn't ask him about that, but he does not have anything specific that caused that. So I think you're gonna have to go in, Jeff Alderman and I've talked about this at great length. I think you're gonna need to go into this building, have an engineer design a plan to strengthen those trusses in the building and, you know, add additional trussing under the roof. Just on that side. The classroom side is fine. And I will say that our friends at Robert Frost, especially Taryn and Dan and all the people that have worked on this project the last week or so, have done an amazing job, you know, managing the complexity of this inside a school. When I call and say, hey, Taryn, you gotta send everybody home. Because, you know, Tom ran it by Pace, and Pace is like, you probably should evacuate the building, but we were already in the middle of doing that. So we did send kids home that day. Because it's safety first, and you just never know, so.
Well, sorry, this kind of begs a question then. Do we need to, like, we have obviously lots of buildings that are similar or older, and to Josh's point, I don't know if those got inspected as something that now we know this is an issue. Should we start taking like some of the other buildings, specifically the trusses, make sure like this could have been.
Yeah, so let me wrap this portion up, Derek, and then I'll answer that as part of that long-range facilities plan, because I think that's within that portion of my presentation. This is some of the bracing they did inside the building. This was the first one that was done under the first truss they found, and it's in the kitchen. And on the far left in the kitchen, just across from that, there's another one, which makes it so Paul can't use the oven. So, I mean, this is something that we have to repair. We're gonna try and repair it over winter break, if we're lucky.
That was my question, like, because the temporary bracing, what's the plan for those? How long are we gonna keep them like this? Because this does shut our kitchen down.
It did, and Elise did a great job, like, pivoting and having Paul and his crew work over at the high school. So Paul goes over to the high school and he, you know, crafts cold lunches and takes them back to Robert Frost. But that's not a good long-term solution, and so we have prioritized getting this fixed over Christmas. The interior work is not weather dependent, because Jeff doesn't think you have to take the deck off the roof. He thinks you can just come underneath and support things. And so the engineers are working on a plan right now, and then we'll have to get bids for that. So, you know, I think hopefully we can get that done over Christmas break, I hope. Yeah, because this is not a great long-term solution. I mean, Paul's Kitchen wasn't great in the first place, but now.
It's not a very big kitchen to begin with.
No, yeah, it's not a great kitchen. So I'm gonna move on. Any other questions about that before I move on?
I do. Thank
Yeah.
you for your capital improvement funds.
Yeah, wasn't that a great idea?
Yes. They're gonna have to pull the sheetrock underneath to expose. They're probably gonna stick frame it in place. We think we can get that done in
You
time?
actually don't have to pull the sheetrock, so we have to make sure that we can get up into the attic. But I don't think they'll have to pull the sheetrock because I think the way they're structured, I think they can just go up under the roof. There's big cross beams across the bottom that hold the ceiling that are actually below the trusses.
Okay. Do we?
You
so
might be able to tell.
What are we thinking on costs for this project, Kim?
We don't know yet. We did put $500,000 into a capital improvement fund, which is designed just for this type of issue. We did replace speakers in the high school gym out of that fund because we had a donor that helped sponsor that. So we did take $25,000 out of that to put new speakers in the gym because they weren't seismically safe. So in an earthquake, the old speakers would be dangerous for kids. They might fall on kids. So we did that project out of that fund. That's the only thing that's come out of there so far. So I think we have ample funds in that account to do this work easily.
But we won't obviously know cost or timeline until bids have been.
Yeah, we need the engineer's working on like what kind of plan needs to go in there. So he built a temporary bracing plan and he had that to us by Sunday so that we could get back into the building because we don't want kids to miss school. And so,
Part of the bid should be to, excuse me,
no, you're good.
part of the bid should be to include what our defined timeline is, so they can build that in. So it can get done over Christmas.
Well, that's important because we lost 2 days of school. That's my other thing. And we already doing the early release days. Are we going to have to add days on to Robert Frost?
We have
specifically?
cushion, and I can send you the calculation. Tony did the calculations. I mean, I think we're probably right at the limit right now. So if we missed another day for some reason for snow, Robert Frost would have to make up a day, for sure.
My 2 cents, I know there's a timeline, but I'd rather them do it right. And we have to push the days longer than get it done by end of break.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll definitely prioritize this and try to, do it as fast and as efficiently as possible, but so that it's safe for kids.
Right.
Safety first, yeah.
Well, good job, Kim.
Yeah, thanks.
Do we have an update on is it okay to share an update?
Oh, how's Dan doing?
Yeah.
Dan is very feisty. I don't know if Taryn's here right now.
No, she's in it to program.
Yeah, oh, she's in the program, yeah. Dan's making good progress, and he has called Taryn several times, and he's texting her, giving her a hard time. And I went to see him in the hospital, and he was doing well and knew who I was, and we had a good, little chat for a second, and he's doing well. Yeah, so we wish him a really speedy recovery, and we'll do our best we can to support him with whatever he needs as he goes along. Yeah. And that did not have anything to do with the, building issues right here. It was an accident, so, yeah. Okay, so we'll head in, if there aren't any other questions? Okay, so long-range facilities updates. So Tom put together this great, I'm going to let Tom talk about this a little bit if he wants, but Tom put together an RFQ for a long-range facilities proposal for a company to come in and help us with long-range facilities planning again. So Josh was on that team. We did a long-range facilities, and I've seen Wally's name on a couple things too, some planning, and that started in 2019. But in order to apply for the Awesome Grant, if we go for a bond, that whole plan has to be updated, and it has to be less than 5 years old. And so because that one was started in 2019, it needs a refresh. And I think it needs, a little deeper exploration. So we were on the phone with, I should go back. We interviewed 2 companies, so we only had 2 people bid this project. These types of firms don't make a ton of money. These are done for districts, mostly as a service and to help set up bond work and different things. And so they both came in and interviewed, and they were both really close. So Brick interviewed, and so did Soderstrom. And they did a great job. I would have been comfortable with either company. This one was a little, just a slight, just a edge the other one out just by a little bit. They do have an employee on their team that was part of the team that built the original high school, which is pretty cool. So he has a lot of in-depth knowledge about the old high school and this one, which is kind of cool. And so this project is going to be between $85,000 and $100,000 to do this all this work on long-range facilities, which includes all the meetings, all the surveys, all the facility assessments. And we have asked them to do a pretty in-depth facilities assessment with some of the structural things we've seen. So when we talked to them today on Zoom meeting, we were like, we need, a couple of these buildings in town need, to have a deeper look at what's going on. So we did request that, and that is why the price is a little bit higher. We did have a donation of $50,000 to help pay for this project, which is really cool, with the caveat that if we're preparing for a bond with the long-range facilities planning, process, that we have an artist rendering, an architectural rendering of what our middle school campus would look like, so that as we present our bond project to voters, they can understand what we are looking at as far as improvements and different things. So we thought that was an important part of the process, and so that we would like to see that in the work that Brick is doing. Again, this process is required for the Awesome Grant, and the Awesome Grant has to be applied for by July 15th. And you apply for it before you go out for a bond, which seems backwards. It seems awkward because you do all the work applying for it, and then you might not get it. Mm-hmm. Because if your bond doesn't pass, the Awesome funding is not available. But Piper Sandler, which is an actuarian, and they do a lot of work with bonds in the state, they have told us that our Awesome Grant amount now would be about $10 million. On the previous bond, it was going to be about 4 to 6, I think. And so it's gone up considerably. It depends on how many people are in the pool and who's received a bond recently and all those good things. So we are getting ready to finalize a contract with Brick to do this work for the district. And we've made some pretty hefty demands about really getting into our buildings and giving us a really clear picture of what's going on. Any questions on that? And you do have their full proposal in your board packet, so if you want to look at part of their plan, all that is in the board packet.
No, and just so everybody's clear, how the Awesome works, that's above and beyond whatever a bond is.
Yes.
So if a bond's 100 million, that would give us 110. If a bond's 200 million, gives us 210.
Right. And we have a way, Piper Sandler says that we have a way to do a replacement bond. So the high school bond comes off in June of 2027. And so they have a way that we can do a really good bond that would do a lot of the work we need to do in the district, and it would not raise the taxpayers' taxes at all. So, but we want to see this long-range facilities plan is the first step.
Yeah,
and it's really important that we, really carefully analyze our properties, what condition they're in, what repairs we need, and how we best serve our students, because our kids deserve the very best, and so we want them in buildings that reflect that.
Didn't the Awesome Grant reduce? Did I see that they reduced the amount? I think wasn't it a $4 million, and did I see there was a reduction in that? Or it's just me making that up in my head, probably?
No, I have not seen that, and we just met with Piper Sandler.
Okay.
That was a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it, Tom, that they shared 10 million, so I don't.
Okay.
It would have had to be really recent.
And it varies all the time as far as the amount,
Yeah.
because of how many are given for bonds.
It also varies based on your student count.
Yeah.
Yeah, your size of your district. So lots going on in the district. So lots of strategic planning and long-range facilities. There's a lot of things going on.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Thomas, financial and enrollment.
All right.
Steve Jobs.
I know, he thought his mom was calling.
Look at me. You're handsome today, buddy.
My update's pretty quick. So overall, the district's enrollment's down about 12 students than it was a month ago. Although, I'm supposed to do the slides. Although note, last month had a surge of enrollment over the previous month. So the drop is actually only down about 4 students from October 1st, which is a lot less than last year for the same period. So last year from October 1st to December 1st, we were down 10. So relative to October, it's not so bad. Most of the changes are pretty small. I think probably Scotts Mills is probably the only one that's more than just like 1% or so in terms of change. And that's my enrollment update. Any questions on enrollment? Okay, good.
I know these numbers are small, but has anybody done any work at understanding why some of these students
Yeah.
were leaving?
Yeah. That's my question.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like sometimes they move, like we had a student that moved at Robert Frost, like Taryn and I just talked about that student. I mean, there's a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
There's no central theme you're
No.
saying?
Not,
Okay.
especially when you
No,
look
this
at
is
numbers
just-
like this. I was just a few minutes ago after the primary grade program over at Rob Crofts, I was talking to somebody and they sold their house and somebody's moving into it, and the people who are moving into it are from Molalla, and they've got 3 school-aged children, so I assume we'll be getting 3 more kids somewhere.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
So, things like
yeah,
that.
I mean, enrollment fluctuates in districts all the time. The important thing to note is that we budgeted on 3550. So we budgeted on a significantly lower amount to make sure that we were not
Yeah.
cutting ourselves short budget-wise.
And 12 out of 3648 is not
Yeah, it's not.
very significant.
No, it's not.
Last year, we were down, I think, 30 from where we were in September or October to the end of the year.
Yep, I think 28.
Heidi said that's fairly average in terms of proportion. But that's something that we could do a deeper dive year over year to see if there's a change too. So I do have good news, followed by a little bit of bad news. So I'm going to I'm going to really milk the good news because that's a really great thing. So it's a quick budget update for month number 5. Note the January update will be kind of a deeper dive because that'll really be the halfway point of the fiscal year. So we'll have much more information. But on the revenue side, just like last month, we're really kind of the same or a little bit ahead of last year, which doesn't mean much. It just means there's no fires. There's nothing that's unexpected that's happened in terms of revenues that we are receiving. So everything there is basically on par and on pace for something similar to last year. If we were, it's really early to project, but if you were going to project, it'd probably be about the same as last year, 99.9% of your budgeted revenues. The good news is really on the expenditure side. The year-to-date spending in terms of the budget is actually lower than last year in most of the main categories: wages, salary, benefits, services, materials, and supplies. The only reason why it shows 28.6% of the budget spent this year compared to last year's smaller 26.9% is kind of in that insurance transfer other. We had the TAN loan that we had to pay back, so the amount was larger. So the year-to-date was smaller relative to that, so it kind of skewed it like you had a smaller percentage. So while still being conservative, we're not even to the halfway point. If we were having to do a forecast, we would now forecast about 1.35 million added to the fund balance. I think last month I said about 890,000, so it's kind of increased and the confidence has increased. I am excluding any potential ODE budget reductions or budget cuts just from this, so you can see this cleanly by itself in terms of our general fund and how it's doing health-wise. And there's a couple of reasons for that. There's still not enough clear guidance on what the impacts will really be from ODE. No decisions have been made yet. Everything ODE is looked at as far as potential reductions. It's not really even 100% clear if it's going to be this fiscal year. It could be next fiscal year when they actually make those decisions. So we know there'll be some impacts probably eventually. We just don't know what those are. So back to the good news, that's great. We're doing, we're continuing to go on the trajectory we want to, which is increasing, the projection of increasing our funds, our fund balance and our reserves. Bad news is, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier, I think last meeting or so. I said that in December, PERS was going to release its preliminary employer rate. So that happened this afternoon. And it doesn't look really great. It's very preliminary. So there's still a lot of things that are up in the air. But it shows our OPSERP rate, which is what some people call Tier 3 in PERS, which is 80% of our employees, going from 10.97% to 16.81%, which is 6 percentage points and a relative increase of 60%. The Tier 1, Tier 2 rate, which is about 20% of our employees, would go up from about 14% to 19%, so about 37%. But that 60% increase for our OPSERP employees is concerning. That could represent an additional $1 million in expense beginning July 1st, 2027. So that's something that we are really thankful that we already kind of set up a PERS reserve. We have a PERS reserve fund that we increase the contributions that go into that to start trying to offset this. We're also really thankful we're looking at 5-6 years ahead of time in terms of our budget modeling to see how we can best make decisions and prepare for something like this. The next step in the process will be February, when the earnings for this year, which actually look really good, because I think PERS, the overall PERS funds are making about 9% year to date, and the assumed rate in their actuarial evaluations is 6.9%. So that could represent several $100 million of their 80 billion or so in investments that can help offset. So this is kind of like an update for today, possibly to be changed in February when they go to the next step in the process.
That's one thing we know for sure. It's like the weather in Oregon. If you stand at the same place for more than 15 minutes, it will change.
PERS will change, yes.
Yes, PERS will change also. So I do have a question for you. So that figure of going up to 16 or 17%, is that then before the return on investment is applied, or is that just automatically still
for
an
this
increase
year's return, or for which year?
I'm not quite sure how we're providing a 17% contribution. On the Tier 3.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, so it's based on their unfunded actuarial liability. So what they project as future costs and where they are now in terms of being funded. Because PERS is, I don't know the exact number, I think it's like 82% funded.
Mm-hmm.
If it was 100% funded, they wouldn't need to increase rates because they have all the reserves to pay the future costs.
Right.
So because I think in terms of the reserves, because they're behind and because costs are going up, salaries are going up, so future retirements are going up, and then depending on what happens with their earnings, if they have a year that's not the minimum 6.9% in terms of what they earn, it's below that, then that just makes the gap even bigger and bigger and bigger. So it would probably be worth having a separate thing where we go through PERS and the different elements of that, because it is kind of interesting, all the factors at play.
Yeah, I have to say that obviously I think it's necessary for us to understand, not that we have a lot of decision power on this, but I think that public education would also be good on that. Because I think that as a state right now, I think that as I am learning this position and I'm starting to read other things from other places, I am getting more and more ashamed to observe the behavior of our leaders in Salem towards education and educators. And it's embarrassing, literally.
I'll give you one example of how complicated it can be, or even surprising, and that is sometimes when they do staffing reductions, let's say some schools have to lay off some people, that increases the gap, because then you have less employees paying into PERS. So it's like a double hit. You're already in the red.
And you still have the same amount of retarees that are collecting benefits.
You still have the same future costs that they're so it's really interesting, the pressures against it to meet its future needs.
I mean, we can have someone come from OSBA or from Piper Sandler or who's the other one? Carol, what's her name?
Carol Samuels from Piper.
Yeah, we
she's
can
great.
have her come and present to the board if you want to know more about PERS. It's super complicated. I was just talking about it to Representative Rick Lewis today because We were talking about, you know, the level of funding in the state of Oregon for K-12 education. We're not the worst in the nation for funding. And I said, right, but
We're not
like
far.
$2.5 million of our budget this year went towards PERS. And wouldn't that have been great if we could, you know,
Yeah.
provide an instructional coach for teachers, or, you know, hire another teacher if we needed, or an IA, or, you know, whatever we needed, but we spent $2.5 million on PERS. And I said, so if you take that out of the equation, but they're not doing that, you know, when they're figuring out, they're just doing the state school fund per dollar, blah, blah, per
Right.
student. They don't factor in this other cost that we are required to pay. And that is a huge hit to K-12 education, and it needs to be accounted for.
Kim, is that an intentional decision that's being made not to factor it in?
I don't, you mean the people that are like
Yeah.
saying what the student per cost is? I just don't know if they even know. And I mean, Stephen Floyd interviewed me today from our town, and I said, you know, he was like, well, you know, how are you budget wise? And I said, well, there's the PERS thing. And he started talking about another journalistic outlet that's doing a piece on that per state amount we get per student. And like, we're number 16. And I said, no, we're not. I said, we might be number 16 purely if you look at just the state school fund allocation, but if you factor in the lack of support for facilities in the state of Oregon, like they don't, you know, I mean, we haven't had any facilities help the whole time I've been a superintendent or an administrator or a teacher for that matter. And then, you know, all the PERS and all these other things that we are having to pay. Plus, I think sometimes at the state level, there are things they could do to help us, contracts for different curriculum and different things, like, you know, like if 100 districts in the state of Oregon are using UFly and ECRI for early literacy, it's in the dashboard. Well, they didn't get us a contract with either of those providers. Like, if they had state contracts for some of these things, it would decrease the cost for district. It's like the same thing in the accountability measure. They're going to give us 4 to 6 assessment providers that we have to use for an interim assessment, have to. But they're not, we don't get a state contract to help us pay for that. Now, we already use STAR, and it's in our budget. But, you know, like other districts who are not using a product right now, or who can't afford it, or who are very small, are now going to have to absorb the cost of another unfunded mandate. The other thing they don't do is Brandon can talk to this, like they don't pay for high cost disability. They pay 28 cents on the dollar for our highest needs students that need the most support. There's major, major, major problems with education funding. And for them, you know, for a blanket article to say, you know, we're number 16, why are we number 50 in rank? And I said, and he goes, why are we near the bottom in reading scores? And I said, well, that's a whole nother story. If you want to talk about assessment and retention, student retention and all those, this is complicated stuff.
Before we move on, because I know we need to, but I'm not good at understanding PERS since I'm not a public employee. So say a person makes $60,000 and 16% of that is like $9,600, okay? Are we saying, so a teacher has a salary of $60,000, we're gonna withhold out of their paycheck, essentially $10,000 on top of Medicare, Social Security?
How we have to pay on top of.
Pay on top of it.
We have to pay on top
That's
of
our
it.
contribution. Yeah.
So this is not withheld from their
No,
No.
the district, our district, and the way the bargaining agreements are is that we pick up the PERS.
Yeah.
Because that's what because I know we got 2 contracts.
Employees' portion is 6%.
Yeah, we pick up the
An employee's
6%
portion,
plus,
but in our
Plus the
contract, we
plus
16.
this thing we're talking
So
about.
16% plus
Plus
6?
6%.
Yes.
Plus any other unfunded extra
Yeah.
liability,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
so your PERS rate might be 30% in total. So if you make $100,000, just because it's easy math, that's another $30,000 the district has to pay to
Per
PERS.
employee.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
So remember our benefit rate, when we look at our fully loaded benefit rate, health, all this stuff, PERS,
I
we're
got into
talking
the wrong
on
business,
average
man.
55% of extra cost.
That's why the
Let me tell my
markups-
daughter work for the state.
markups are so much
So just-
higher than
just-
the actual pay that's going out.
Just an FYI, just to be clear, this has nothing to do with Silver Falls. So every school district
Yeah.
has
No,
this
yeah,
on
that's
average.
right.
So
Yeah.
I
But
just
that's
wanted to
just
make
me
sure.
trying to understand,
Yeah.
you know, what this means to our teachers, what this means to our staff, like what this literally means out of people's paychecks. I'm such a basic guy, I'm not you, Tom, I'm not smart like you. And so I need, I need a little help in this really, you just put it into context. So
Yeah,
it's
employer cost, which is why some school districts have made cuts and layoffs, and why others probably will next year. It's a lot to face.
And not every district pays 6%. Some
Right.
districts, the teachers have to pay that
Pay
6%.
6%.
Yeah,
So
correct, yeah, some
the
districts.
teachers here are lucky to have that.
Some ESDs don't pay 6% either, yeah. I mean, the real cost of it is what it costs us for instructional support for students. That's the real cost, because it takes it directly out of our budget, that huge amount.
Tom, I've never thought about this before. You mentioned the 6.9%. Is that year by year, or is it over a time frame? 'Cause as an investor, what you look at is over time.
That's the assumed rate each year, that they'll get 6.9%. And keep in mind, PERS has a lot of private equity and a lot of like government investments, and it's not just like the stock market, it's a smaller.
So you might hit that one year, you might be below that another year, you might be above that
Correct.
another year,
Right.
but it doesn't matter, because they go by year.
Well, the real problem is that they promised tier one employees 8%.
Yeah.
And it has not it hasn't maintained that level. I mean, that's.
a couple of rough seasons.
And this is scary, like if you want to give people raises, like say you want to, this could scale.
Right, with
Boom.
increases, then your PERS costs go up, and then if the stock market does not do well, investments do not do well, it's a year of 0%, then your employer rate really gets higher, because now you have to make up for the increased gap of what you have to pay in the future for retirees. To be continued. So February will be the next, well, they'll have the earnings, and thank you.
Ebb and flow. Okay, here, that's everything then, Tom?
Yes, sir.
And then, Tony, the staffing report.
All righty. Thank you, members of the board. Now I get to talk about the biggest factor that our budget pays for, which is, of course, our staff. We don't make widgets. What we do is we support student learning. And every year at this time, we give a staffing update. It's usually around mid-October or so, then when the numbers of the class sizes start getting settled, our placement and assignment of staff starts getting settled. So around this time is a good time to give an update, and we do a comparative compared to the last year. This year's update is no different, but we did make sure we still benchmark to the 23-24 year, because if you recall, that's the year before we did the layoffs. So, last year it was just one-to-one conversation over the 2 years, but now we have, so in addition to the 23-24 FTE, we have the 24-25 in the December 1st of this year's numbers. The first thing I'll start with saying is that in the HR world, we tend to talk a little bit more about FTE, full-time employment, versus number of employees. For instance, I could say for number of employees, we're around 470, 471. But in FTE, that number is a little bit different. And it's really a more important number when we're thinking about budget. Because you can have an employee, a lot of our aides, maybe 7 hours or 7.5 hours, but that's not necessarily a full FTE. So it's important that we really distinguish that factor, because it does, sometimes this will show numbers that then people might not fully understand. That's why when I do the individual building reports, which I'll zoom through in a few minutes, you'll see that I also tag to it the actual number of employees, the number of bodies that we see. Okay? So in this first...
I have a quick question, sorry. What is confidential employees?
Okay, I'm going to get to that. Okay. So what I do in this first slide is I break down the overall staffing, and we have several groups of employees. Licensed, pretty straightforward, the teachers. And other licensed staff. Classified are our support staff. Administrative, those are those of us who are in Silver Falls. We consider those the licensed administrative staff, so Kim and I. We have supervisory employees. So now, for instance, Tom is considered in that group because he is not a licensed administrator, but he is an administrator. Confidential. Right now, we only have 2 confidential employees. They're both in this room right now, and they're confidential because they're designated that because they have intricate involvement with policy matters, and therefore they are not members of the represented unions. And you have Debbie, and you have my assistant, Marissa Franklin.
So there's your two. We used to have more. Now, for instance, there was one we had 3, but that was the controller position, and the controller position now has moved to supervisory because with that reconfiguration, she actually has a few employees that she now supervises. So that explains partly that drop of that one.
Hey, Tony, can I mention something on the administrative? The administrative looks particularly high, but that's because we have Elise Hansen as the Director of Student Achievement and Wellness and Nutrition in that number. And so there actually is one, we don't have the Sodexo contract any longer. So that is why that is a little bit higher. And we also prioritized having a principal at Scotts Mills and Silvercrest each. So that wasn't a good split, so.
And so we can see that, if we have about 411 FTE compared to 396 last year, that is a change, but I think what's going to be important now is that we look at what causes those changes. So we can see that in general education teachers, you can see on the far to right column, you can see the change in the FTE and also the change in the number of positions that we had. So in general ed teachers, we're down 2, which was a reduction of, there was a teacher at Scotts Mills, and then also we eliminated a TOSA position that was a student success advocate at Robert Frost. That teacher ended up getting transferred to Scotts Mills, because technically Scotts Mills could have lost 2 teachers. When in special ed teachers, we have a net loss of 1. Counselors, we've added a few positions, but you'll see that's an example where you can add a few positions, but it only added 0.6 FTE. And we have a few people who are smaller FTE split across different buildings. The area where we have seen the biggest jump, and this is an area where both Kim and I make sure we let the board know when we do have incremental adds during the school year, should be no surprise to you, our instructional assistant area. We've added 3 instructional assistants, and a lot of those are due in our special ed areas where you see instructional assistant 2. Instructional assistant 2s work with our students who need the most intensive support, usually in our area of special education. And those are areas where coming into this fall, we have noticed that there is, relative to previous years, there's fairly substantial additional needs in supporting these students. The next thing I do in this report is then start breaking it down by school. Now, I won't sit here and go through every one of the different buildings, but I will give you an example about how I run through it, and then you can look through that at your leisure, and then please always feel free to let me know if you have any questions about that. But what we do in this chart then is that's where we really start doing our analysis about what's happening in individual buildings. So you can see we start with, of course, looking at what's the enrollment change at those buildings, because that puts context. Because you can see here, for instance, Butte Creek, you can say, well, it looks like they did well. They have 2 new positions. Yeah, they lost 1 aide, but they got 1 aide, and they also got a teacher. Well, but you can also see that they also increased the most relative numbers across the district, adding 26 students. And you can see how that breakdown is to the current number of positions and where the change is. So, again, at the Butte Creek School, one of the things that was unique there is that we also have a social studies position that is split with Scotts Mills. Primarily, the individual is at Butte Creek, but we do have them go to support social studies work at Scotts Mills. I'm going to run through, so you can see these for the various different schools. And at the end of my presentation, I'll ask if any of you have particular questions about schools. But what I wanted to get to here in Sequoia Falls, the important thing to look at is the addition of the hybrid program, because that has resulted in us adding a few teachers to the program, but we also reduced the social worker position there. Silvercrest, you can see this was one of the schools that I was worried about the enrollment, because you can see the enrollment change is down 4 students, and yet that they're the same staffing. This is one of the schools I really watched carefully, because they're at that cusp. You may recall a few months ago, they were one of the schools I was really close to having to think about in staffing. And again, we know this is an impact on students, but we also know each of these has an impact on the overall budget and where we allocate staff across the district. The high school it has seen a little bit of change, but you can see really not too much. If anything, we reduced 2 general ed teachers there. Kim and I worked a lot with the high school staff over the late spring and summer to really look at their staffing allocations across departments. And through that work, there was some condensing they could do. Now, that condensing is relative, because if you hear from some educators in some of our departments, like English department particularly, they will say they are, relative to their other departments, more greatly impacted by these changes. And they are, but that's why, when we get to the budget season in a few months, that's where we'll have to start talking about decisions we make about where do we allocate those dollars. Because we do know at the high school where you see these changes more drastically, because we have a big portion, of course, that's allocated to CTE, right? And so there will be some decisions that we'll talk about once we get more of Tom's numbers and once we get a better sense about what our enrollments will be for the coming year. So discussion points. There are some points that I just want to leave you with in doing this report. The first is, it doesn't show up on here, but you'll notice on the introductory slide, you'll also see this year I made sure to add Marissa Franklin, who I just introduced you to a few minutes ago, on that, because really it's through her work that she does a lot of these numbers. She is the one who really manages these numbers. A lot of my work is on policy and, of course, working with employee challenges, I should say. Marissa is the one who's processing all these hires. Of course, I do the final approval on them, but she's processing the hires. She's processing all the data, making sure these systems are getting updated. She's involved with the integration between the work that Tom's controllers do and then with what we do in HR. It's an important role because we're seeing that as we're providing support to our employees, since we have had a net number of employees, we've also realized there is at some point where you have to think about the support that's provided to support employees. Mm-hmm. And that's why you'll see that a week ago, Kim had sent an email on our behalf that we need to do something. And there's another big reason for providing more support for Marissa's work is, and this crosses over to teaching and learning a little bit, is safety and security, which we just talked a little bit about. We are really needing to do a little bit more work on safety and security. Right now, Marissa's doing double duty, supporting my work in HR, but also helping with safety and security. We're at a point now where a lot of these things are going to come, a lot of the safety of our employees, whether we're talking about the daily safety and security, but we're also talking about, because there is a reality, as you might imagine, late last week I had a visit from OSHA. And what's the first thing they asked, other than some of the basic facts of what happened? They said, well, I'm going to be contacting you about making sure I can get all your safety committee meeting minutes and notes and all your quarterly reports for facilities and maintenance inspections. Well, that doesn't happen in a vacuum. So that's a factor we'll always consider. Some other things to think about is that you won't see on the skill level reports, you won't see clerical put in there because I really focused it on what's happening in classrooms. Okay, but they will show up in the overall numbers that you see. There's a special conversation that's been happening over the last few months that I want to mention to you, and it is kind of tied to the safety. I mentioned how the IAAs, we've added a few IAAs. With some of the challenges we've had with our students who need the most support, we have had an increase on incidents, safety incidents, accidents. And those early on in the year were significant enough where I pulled together all the instructional assistants. Marissa and I met with them at the end of a school day, and we allowed them basically to talk, to share some of their experiences. Out of that work, we developed several steps that we're going to do, and safety and security being one. Also providing more opportunities for our instructional assistants to have time with their teachers that they work with, to have more discussion about the intricacies of the student needs and how we balance that between what the teacher's doing and what the aides are doing. Yes, a lot of that was work with Brandon Larson. Director Larson has a lot of that work to carry out now moving forward. But it's very important in this, and it's going to come up again in the spring, because in addition to talking about budget numbers and staffing numbers. I have been very open about this, that I think we're at the point in time where between all the mandatory trainings I have to make sure our employees do, providing the opportunities under the recent Senate bill for time for our classified staff to meet with employees, with the teachers on their students they're supporting, and with our emphasis this year on literacy instruction, where we know the value of our instructional assistants and helping that. They are educators. They have specific roles, but they're educators. I'm at the point, those of you on the board last year probably remember when I made this comment that I don't think I'm at the point as an HR professional that I can adequately say that I have enough time with our classified employees to meet all the mandates. I'm likely going to make a recommendation that we think about adding up to 2 days to our classified employees at the beginning of the year to help with some of these very things that do end up costing us money because they're safety reports, which end up being, we have several employees on time loss for workers' comp. Anything we can do to help provide relief for that is going to be a benefit in the long run. So that's what I wanted to leave you with as we go into budgeting next year. And remember, we're also going to be going into, in the spring, bargaining again this year with both groups. Usually we've staggered them. This last spring, primarily because of our budget situation last spring, we only focused on a one-year contract with the teachers union. They were very supportive of this general work that Kim's been trying to lead at our district. But so now next spring we are going to have to meet with both. And our employees, just like we're facing increasing costs. Our employees in their lives are also facing increased costs of living and things too. So, it's understandable that we're hitting this intersection of a bunch of competing factors that we're going to need to think about. And again, they all come down to people, because we're in the people business. And that's where the lion's share of our the dollars that we get go to. A lot there. Any questions I can answer for you?
Just a comment. In the old days, the school-by-school profiles that you showed here, basically, we had that as part of the package for the budget committee. I think it'd be helpful to do that again, to include that.
Sure.
Yep.
That's a good idea.
The comment, thank you to Marissa and you. That's a lot of work, and I really appreciate seeing it. I guess one question would be, when you see a huge influx for like one particular school, like Butte Creek, I would hope that triggers a question of like, what's going on there? Like, why is there such a big gain versus other places?
Yep. Enrollment, there's a little bit of enrollment shifts. Principal Palmer could speak a little bit more to it. We have noticed, for instance, at that school that we're seeing students who were previously enrolled in the private schools, some of them are the religious schools, are little by little starting to trickle back. During the COVID years, remember, districts across the state, a lot of students were moving to more of the private schools, or we used to call them parochial schools or religious schools, right? And that school, somewhat by location, but also by just the normal demographic trends, is seeing a few more of those students coming back. It's also a little bit of a testament to the good work that's happening at the schools. We get a fair amount of people who are requesting inter-district transfer to Butte Creek. But likewise, you can see from some of the schools where we've lost enrollment, you can also look at demographic trends, housing trends, and whatnot. So all these factors come into play, and where we have to, like, at those first few weeks of the year where we have to think about some possible shuffling of employees. Because sometimes we don't know until day one, especially when kindergartners show up, really how many number we're going to have. That was a big issue with Robert Frost this year. We started seeing, even though overall numbers were a little bit down, there was a big hit at kindergarten level, which makes us have to think about the grade spans that we're assigning our teachers to. A great question.
And to manage high needs kids, that kindergarten grade level, that there's a lot of kids that need extra support in there. So the staffing at that level is very important.
One thing I noticed on the high school numbers, looks like we're down 66 students, but with Sequoia, with our hybrid program under Sequoia, that was a net gain. So is it potentially not as big of a loss, we're thinking, or?
Yeah, I think part
Or-
of those kids are, yeah.
Yeah, it's not as big of a loss, but it is,
Still-
there is a little bit of loss. I think actually the school that was kind of the most stable was actually, I think, the middle school, those numbers. But we're gonna keep watching that as well as we go, because it is the number one factor in assigning teachers,
Right.
is the number of students that are coming through the door.
Then just another comment, I'm hearing it from teachers as well, just the additional need for support, and so it's good to see that you're hearing the same thing, paying attention to that, so thank you.
Thank you all.
I just want to comment, all of you over there, I appreciate the thoroughness and transparency and getting this information to us and in a way that we can understand. And it's very beneficial because there will be budget decisions later and this sort of thing, and it really helps paint pictures for us. And so I appreciate, and I know that doesn't just happen. I know you just don't pull up a Google and bring that stuff to us. It takes a lot of work by you guys and everybody that works with you and everything, so we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay. Board elections. I heard from two of our members that they thought it'd be best if we voted on the OSBA elections. And so as a group, is that what we want to do? And then if it is, we'll go through the process.
I'll throw out, I thought that we should. I think there's a piece to it. I've heard time and time again, Josh talks about modeling the way, and I think we have an opportunity and kind of a need to have input. There's a whole generation of people that were not allowed to vote, and so I think out of due diligence, I think it's important. With that said, I'm kind of slightly indifferent about, some of the candidates that are running unopposed. So I think as an exercise and as a nod, I think we should. And so that's kind of where I landed with.
I'm in agreement with that. I think we pay a lot of money into OSBA. We do have one contested race. I think we at least need to weigh in on that one.
I agree. I mean, there's the more that I've been in this position. First I was kind of with Phil, like, oh, let's just not. But then, how much I just am always aggravated sometimes with OSBA leadership, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in the community that are too, but they don't have a say. Their say is through us. So I think it's our responsibility.
So my question is the information that was provided to us, I really couldn't tell the difference between the candidates. So I will vote as a no vote, like not as I'm against it. I'm just going to abstain from voting because I don't feel that I have enough information to make it educated. As far as I know, I don't see much of a difference between any of those candidates. And I agree that we give them a lot of money, and so far, I think and I looked at the benefit package that they have on their website, and I tell you that if it'd be out of my office, my membership would no longer be in there. That's my official position. I will vote absent or whatever, you abstain.
One thing I would like to remind everybody here, every one of us at this table is able to send in a petition to run for these positions and make a difference at OSBA. Every one of us. Just remember that.
That's a good point. It takes extra time, but you're absolutely right.
Just remember that. Well, is there consensus that we do the vote?
I mean,
Just a show of hands, fine for me. Okay, we'll take care of the vote then. Okay, the first position is a contested one, and I would not do justice to say Satea's name, full group. I know I couldn't, and Karina. And so what I propose we do is we have some discussion around those two candidates. Since that's a contested one, I'm sure we'd want to cast a vote there. And then at the time of voting, just each of us, when you're called, tell which one you're supporting. So I open it up for discussion.
So I want to speak for Dr. Shagiri. Sata. I've had some little bit of interaction with him in the past. He's excited about the possibility of being on OSBA and hoping to provide some change there. So I'm supporting him.
He's the same for me. My background comparatively aligns more with my positions.
Well, I'm kind of where Daniel is as far as knowing well enough people incoming. I actually did attempt to do quite a bit of research on each one and to learn as much as I could that was out there without sitting and watching all their board meetings and doing that sort of thing. Satya? Is that how you say his name?
I think so.
He just goes by the first 5 letters, Satya. I will never be able to cast a vote there for him because he does not display what board membership is about. He has a social media that says it's his directorship position for Salem Kaiser, and then he's also got his party of choice that he's committeeman on, and he's got that on there. And you got to go a long way before you find any post on there about anything for betterment working with kids in Salem Kaiser. The lion's share of it is very political, very national orientated in his politics. And he's had press conferences where he calls out his fellow board members for him thinking different than them, and had press conferences to do that. That's not my thinking of how board members should conduct themselves, so I'd be really troubled there. I know Ortiz is presently on the board. She was appointed by OSBA, I think it was last year, and they had, both of them actually applied for that position of appointment, and she was chosen. But they've both been board chairs. He was back in 2020, I believe, is when he was. There was, anyway, there's too many things I've seen there that I could never support him.
I did not know that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Any other discussion? We'll call for a vote if not.
Well, do we need to do that in action item later?
Oh, you're right. Thank you, sir. Yes, we're just discussing now. Did we, anybody have any input on any of the other positions? They're all uncontested.
I'm going to abstain on all those. I can't support them. And
Yeah. that was kind of I was kind of torn with the principle of voting, and then
yeah,
with the candidates that we had. Okay. So,
well, any further discussion? You also get another chance when we in the action item if you think of something. Okay, we'll move on. Work session location. Kim?
Yes, that was me. So the quick update for you. So Debbie and I went through the upcoming board meetings to try and determine where we could do some board work sessions at different buildings throughout the district, so you could tour the buildings, see conditions. It just so happens that Robert Frost is first. It's on January 26th. So our work session will actually be held inside that building. And we're hoping that Robert Frost team. What was
Can we
that?
have the meeting in the attic?
No, you're not going in the attic, Daniel. It'll be in the library. And we will have Robert Frost staff present, some highlights of what they're working on inside the building. And then Mark Twain is next on the 23rd of February. And then we start getting into budget time, and we don't have a March board work session. So the only place we could put the middle school which was another building we wanted to visit, is on the regular board session. If the board doesn't love that, then we can move it forward further, but
It's fine, do a regular board session there.
it would be okay?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so
Done
that's
them
what we.
before there.
Yeah, okay, so that's what we came up with. So those are just changes in location, and we'll make sure we blast those out to the community pretty good and advertise those in those building communities so that folks can come and join our board meeting. It's great to have people chime in and attend, and so maybe we'll get some community input that way.
Okay.
And it's kind of like a building showcase.
Okay. Calendar on the board budget final or budget calendar.
I don't think we have to do that yet. Those are just the proposed dates
Oh, okay.
on that. Yeah, that's.
So we won't be
Those
adopting the calendar.
sometimes the budget committee meetings move a little bit, but
Okay.
that's what we had initially.
Okay. Then, let's see, then pardon me why I had to refresh here, so I'm out of sync for a second.
I think you're just on public comment, Phil.
Okay, oh, public comment, yes.
Yeah.
So do we have any public comment? And do we have any hand raised online?
See anybody online? I don't see anybody with a hand raised, no.
Okay. Okay, and then for our only action item appears to be the OSBA elections. So is there any more discussion before we elect for position 11, I guess it would be?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I mean, I am a little bit troubled seeing some of this stuff, Phil. And
I think you've got to realize the kind of board he's on with Sam Kaiser. And
Boards, we're supposed to be, I don't care what board it is for public education, we should be working to come to the middle and work with each other.
That board is troubled.
So,
Yeah, boards are supposed to operate with one voice. It's
Agreed.
a collective voice that supports kids. Yeah. But not supposed to be divisive like that.
I know I did reach out to OSBA about an official action, like, do we have to vote? She says, no, you just have to take the action that you guys would just chose not to vote. You know, I'm leaning just abstaining at this point. I really don't know if I could support either one of them. You know, I understand where he's coming from, you know, but also, I mean, if one of our board members was doing this, I'd probably fly up a wall, you know? So, you know, yeah, that's where I'm at.
any more discussion before we vote?
I'm going to nominate Sata just because he's, I understand where you're coming from, Phil, but OSBA needs to make some changes, and he can help make some changes there.
Well, like I said, what we'll do is we'll have the discussion, we'll get on the discussion,
Okay.
and then I'll just go down the line and vote. Any further discussion before we do?
Well, I'm just curious, what happens if I abstain?
Then you're not supporting either one.
Okay, that can be an official action I take.
No. In
I
fact,
just
if
want to
we
make sure
don't,
that it's following.
one of them has to have 4 votes before we turn into OSBA that one of them won.
And if they don't?
Then we don't
Nothing.
turn
Okay.
anything on the OSBA.
Okay.
Like you said, there's no requirement.
Okay.
And I think that's, for me, I think that's fine too. I think it was important for us to at least like
Take
have a
the action,
conversation
yeah.
and take the action.
I appreciate
And if we
it.
don't like the
Agreed.
candidates that are presented before us, we've kind of had a discussion, looked into it as opposed to not discussing it at all.
And we didn't punt.
All right.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, I'm good.
you're good? Okay, everybody fine? Okay, Debbie, if you do roll call and we'll each say our vote.
Ortiz,
I abstain.
Sarah,
Ortiz.
Derek,
Abstain.
Phil,
Ortiz.
Daniel,
Abstain.
Wally,
Sata.
Okay, so no one got 4 votes, so we turn in. Now, do we want to, what do we want to do on the unopposed ones?
Let's do the same thing.
Okay, so, let's just go through position 12 then. I'm gonna butcher it. Oliveros, I think is how you-
Oliveros.
Oh, Oliveros, there you go.
Oliveros.
Yeah. You'd think my Spanish would kick in, but it doesn't. My, Mrs. Stewart wouldn't be happy with me. Anyway, go ahead and call Debbie.
Rashana,
Oliveros.
Josh,
Oliveros.
Sarah,
Oliveros.
Derek,
Oliveros.
Phil,
Oliveros.
Daniel,
Abstain.
Wally,
Abstain.
Okay, so Oliveros gets our vote for position 12. And then for Fuller, for position 11 in the Legislative Policy Committee.
Rashana,
Fuller.
I'm sorry,
Fuller, I think so. Yeah.
Josh,
Fuller.
Sarah,
Fuller.
Derek,
Abstain.
Phil,
Fuller.
Daniel,
Abstain.
Wally,
Abstain.
4.
Do you get 4? Okay, so. And Fuller will get the vote there. And then Harnsick.
Harnish.
Good.
That's a hard name.
Yeah.
Rashana,
Harnish.
Josh,
Harnish.
Sarah,
Harnish.
Derek,
Abstain.
Phil,
Harnish.
Daniel,
Abstain.
Wally,
Abstain.
4.
Okay.
4 votes, 3 abstain.
And Debbie, will you take care of getting those turned into OSBA for us? Thank you. Okay.
That's about the
And-
most fireworks we've had in a while.
Future agenda items, anything?
Pass the ball.
Sounds good.
I'd like to get a review of the accident at Robert Frost and the fact finding and
That's not a board. That's not under the board's purview. That's an operational detail, and it's personnel related.
well, I'm looking beyond personnel. Is what are we going to do about the accident and what changes are being made? So not focusing on the person, but what do we learn from this and what are we going to do next steps?
I'll see what I can release.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll see what my ability is to share that with you.
thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. We are adjourned.